Hey listeners, I'm Taylor McGraw, host of The Bell, a media platform that amplifies the voices of students and the conversation about education and empowers them to lead the fight for their futures. Each episode in this first season of our podcast, called Hearts and Minds, features student narratives related to the theme of school segregation. So far, there have been 2 episodes, each of which focused on a young man named Noah. If you haven't listened to those, I encourage you to go back and listen to them. Episode 3 comes your way next week, and it will feature a couple of students from Harlem who have had some, let's say, interesting encounters with white students.
He does have black friends, but he doesn't just have black friends. Like, he actually understands them. Because a lot of white people say, oh, yeah, I have black friends. But it's like, oh, that doesn't really mean anything, technically. Because just because you have them doesn't mean you understand what they go through, you know?
So that's coming your way soon. But in the meantime, I wanted to take a few minutes to respond to a development from last week related to this issue of school integration. So for months now, Mayor Bill de Blasio and his school's chancellor, Carmen Farina, have promised a comprehensive plan to address the segregation that has plagued the city's school system for decades. And last week, the plan finally arrived in the form of a 12-page document that contained not a single reference to segregation or integration. The word diversity, however, appeared 71 times, including in the title. This new plan is the policy equivalent of a last-minute gift delivered without wrapping paper or a card. The question now among integration advocates, can we exchange it? Critics have called the plan small bore, meek, unlikely to make a dent. But the plan's modest ambition isn't the only problem. The city's metrics and terminology also represent a troubling lack of seriousness toward the issue. The plan puts forth just 2 quantifiable diversity goals, one racial and the other socioeconomic. The race-related goal, which has received the most attention, is as follows. In 5 years, the city aims to increase by 50,000 the number of students who attend, quote, racially representative schools, which it defines as schools with student populations greater than 50%, but not more than 90% Black and Hispanic. Here's Mayor de Blasio talking about this goal last week on WNYC's Brian Lehrer Show.
The plan we put forward this week will reach ultimately tens of thousands of kids and will make a very big difference in terms of diversification.
Even some critics have conceded that it's a positive first step. But a close inspection of the goal reveals how it would likely have no significant effect on racial diversity and could be achieved even if the school system becomes more segregated. Yes, more segregated. Let me explain. Overall, 67.8% of public school students are either Black or Hispanic. Strangely, the city rounds this figure up to 70%, which explains how it set the bookends of this racially representative range. They essentially went plus or minus 20 percentage points from this rounded mean. But it doesn't explain why they set it this way. In any event, only about 30% of students attend schools inside this 50 to 90% Black and Hispanic range. An additional 50,000 students would boost that to 35%. Hardly a major shift. But to really make sense of the goal, it's important to know that the current distribution of Black and Hispanic students skews dramatically toward the upper extreme. This is most evident when looking at the percentage of Black and Hispanic students in each of the city's 1,856 public schools. The distribution looks like a hockey stick, with a great mass of schools having an extremely high percentage of Black and Hispanic enrollments. If you click on the podcast page of bellpodcast.com, you can read this story in text version and look at a couple of graphs that help explain what I'm talking about. So I encourage you to do that. In more precise terms, half of the public schools, 928, have Black and Hispanic enrollments of at least 90.1%, which is the median. A quarter, 464 schools, are at least 95.9% Black and Hispanic. Because so many schools are clustered just north of the racially representative zone, the slightest demographic nudge, in some cases the addition of a single white or Asian kid, could drop a school that's on the cusp of the zone into the zone, thus contributing its entire enrollment toward the 50,000 student goal. If the 105 schools currently between 90.1% and 92% Black and Hispanic fell to 90%, moving an average of just 1 percentage point, the city's goal would be reached. Let's say it happens. What would this allow us to claim? Well, for the 50,000 students who move inside the zone, the demographic shift of their schools would likely be imperceptible. More importantly, it would tell us nothing about the racial diversity experienced by the 65% of students still outside of the zone. As a small percentage of schools inch closer to the mean, the polls could drift even farther apart. In other words, the city could reach its goal even if the system at large were to become more segregated. To illustrate this concept, imagine LeBron James's goal next season is to score within 5 points of his points per game average more often, say 3 more times than he did this season. He could achieve this goal while having an even more scattered overall scoring distribution. Measuring the point totals that fall within an arbitrary zone provides no information about point totals outside of the zone. Now, before proposing a better metric, I must first comment on the term racially representative, which is inaccurate and misleading. Most of the schools in the city's, quote, racially representative zone have at least 2 races that are heavily underrepresented or overrepresented. Take PS 28 in Queens. It's 89.9% Hispanic, but it meets the definition because it has 0 Black students. PS 398 in Crown Heights, which, if you remember, this is where Noah went to the tail end of his 5th grade year. It also meets the definition, even though it has just 2 white and 4 Asian students. Now, the question is, why would the city choose such a flawed term? My guess is that they thought racially representative would evoke thoughts of diversity, as opposed to segregation, a word the mayor hesitates to use in reference to schools.
In the context of all that history, would you not call the schools segregated?
Brian, we have a problem we have to address. And the reason I am very, very adamant on this is I know if I start to use certain terminologies, people will miss the forest for the trees. I'm not going down that rabbit hole.
But no matter how they choose to label it, what they're really assessing is the degree to which Black and Hispanic students are racially isolated, which is exactly what school segregation researchers measure. So how could the city fix the goal? It's pretty simple, really. Focus on moving the median. As I mentioned, the median percentage of Black and Hispanic students in city schools is 90.1%. Anything done to move the median toward the mean, which again is 67.8%, would result in a less segregated system overall. Setting targets related to the distance between the mean and the median would also control for possible demographic shifts that static goals, such as the current one, do not take into account. Moving the median could also be applied to socioeconomic and academic segregation, which are just as severe and harmful as racial segregation. Now, while choosing appropriate metrics is important, so too is language. The city should be more transparent about its mission, which, beneath the veneer of diversity, appears to be, and should be for now, reducing the stark segregation of Black and Hispanic students. To its credit, the diversity plan established a school diversity advisory group that will, over the next year, evaluate initial goals and policies put forth in the report. We should be prepared to push that group to adopt more ambitious goals with sound metrics, and then hold the city accountable for meeting them. For, as anyone with public policy experience knows, the true work comes after a policy has been made. So those are my thoughts on the diversity plan. Again, I hope you check out the blog entry at bellpodcast.com to take a look at the graphs and numbers, and share this on your social networks and with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Bell Podcast. And like I said, we'll be back next week with episode 3. Thanks for listening.